Hello, everyone. Tom Hardy, the enigmatic, intense, and brutally honest actor who has built a reputation as one of Hollywood's most captivating performers, recently left the world stunned when he said, "I'm risking it all to tell you the truth. It's time." For years, Hardy has been a man shrouded in mystery, hiding behind roles that reflected his inner chaos. From Bronson to The Dark Knight Rises, from Mad Max, Fury Road to Venom. But beneath the powerful characters and tough exterior lies a man who has fought more battles within himself than anyone could imagine. His confession, raw and unfiltered, wasn't about fame or film. It was about survival, redemption, and the heartbreaking reality that behind his legendary career stands a lifetime of pain, addiction, and loss. For the first time, Tom Hardy opened the door to his soul, revealing the truth about his demons, his fears, and the dark moments that nearly destroyed him. And his words left millions shaken, not because of scandal, but because they exposed the fragile humanity behind one of cinema's strongest faces. To understand Hardy's heartbreaking truth, we have to go back to his beginnings. A young man from London, born into creativity but trapped in chaos. Edward Thomas Hardy was born in 1977 in Hammersmith, the only child of a writer father and an artist mother. His home life was supportive, but his mind was restless. Even as a boy, Hardy was drawn to danger, fascinated by rebellion, addicted to risk. By the time he was a teenager, he had already started spiraling into a world of drugs, alcohol, and self-destruction. He later admitted that by 15 he was out of control, stealing, lying, and using substances to fill a void he couldn't explain. His confession revealed that he wasn't trying to be bad. He was trying to escape himself. The chaos in his heart was louder than anything outside. It was the early sign of a pattern that would define his early adult life. A desperate search for meaning in all the wrong places. When Hardy entered the acting world, it seemed like salvation, but in truth, it was just another stage for his internal war. He rose quickly, catching attention in Band of Brothers and Black Hawk Down, but behind the camera, he was imploding. Fame only amplified his emptiness. The drinking worsened, the drugs consumed him, and the man the world saw as strong was breaking apart privately. In his confession, Hardy admitted there were nights he didn't want to wake up, mornings when the only thing that kept him alive was the thought of one more chance to make it right. He revealed that his addiction nearly ended his life, that one night, after a violent binge, he woke up in a pool of his own blood and vomit, not knowing how he'd survived. "That was the night I realized I was either going to die or start over," he said quietly. It was a turning point, the moment Tom Hardy decided to fight for his life. His recovery wasn't easy. Hardy checked himself into rehab, a place he once described as both hell and heaven. Hell because it forced him to face himself, and heaven because it gave him the tools to rebuild. He spent years piecing his soul back together, confronting the trauma he had buried under substances and bravado. But what makes Hardy's story so heartbreaking is that sobriety didn't fix everything. It just stripped away the distractions. Without drugs, he had to face the raw truth of who he was, and it terrified him. He spoke of the guilt he carried for the relationships he ruined, the friends he lost, the people he hurt. He admitted that even now, decades later, he still feels like that broken boy trying to make sense of his life. "You don't ever get rid of your demons," he said. "You learn to live above them." That haunting line became the core of his confession, a message to anyone battling inner darkness that survival isn't about conquering pain, it's about carrying it with grace. As his career soared with roles like Bronson, Warrior, and The Dark Knight Rises, Hardy became a symbol of intensity and strength. But he revealed that every role was a reflection of his own torment. Playing Charles Bronson, the violent, unstable prisoner, forced him to confront his rage. Playing the fighter in Warrior made him face his guilt. Playing Bane, the masked villain, reminded him of how much he used to hide behind walls. I play, Hardy confessed, is me talking to a version of myself I used to be. That realization hit fans hard, because behind the Oscar nominations and blockbuster fame, Hardy wasn't performing for fame. He was performing to survive. Acting became therapy, a way to process the chaos he once drowned in alcohol. But the price of such emotional honesty was immense. He admitted that sometimes he would come home from set and collapse in tears, unsure whether he had given too much of himself to a role or not enough to his real life. Hardy's personal life, too, has been marked by tragedy and redemption. His first marriage fell apart during his addiction, leaving him emotionally shattered. But years later, he found love again with actress Charlotte Riley, who became the calm in his storm. They built a quiet life, away from Hollywood's noise, raising their children in near secrecy. Hardy's confession included how fatherhood saved him, how the birth of his son made him want to live differently, love differently, and finally forgive himself. When I saw my child for the first time, he said, I realized everything I'd been running from was right there in me. I had to stop running, yet even fatherhood didn't erase his pain. He admitted that he still battles self-doubt, still fears losing control, still worries that the darkness could return. That vulnerability, coming from a man who once seemed unbreakable, made his words feel both devastating and deeply human. Perhaps the most shocking part of Hardy's revelation was his honesty about Hollywood itself, the pressures, the hypocrisy, and the emotional cost of the system. He described how fame can consume you, how the adoration of millions means nothing when you don't love yourself. They see the movies, the red carpets, the muscles, he said, but they don't see the nights you're alone, wondering who you really are. He admitted that there were times he thought about walking away completely, disappearing from acting, from fame, from everything, just to find peace. You spend your life becoming someone else on screen, he confessed, and sometimes you forget who you are off it. Those words pierced the hearts of fans because they revealed the lonely truth behind so many public figures who seemed to have it all. But what makes Tom Hardy's story so powerful isn't the pain, it's his courage to speak it. He said that for years he kept quiet because he feared judgment, feared losing his career, feared being misunderstood. I've built a career on being tough, he admitted, but the toughest thing I've ever done is be honest. And that honesty came at a cost. He knew opening up about addiction, depression, and trauma would make him vulnerable in an industry that thrives on image, but he did it anyway. If I can save one person from going through what I did, he said, it's worth everything. That statement alone turned his confession into something greater than a celebrity story. It became a message of hope for anyone fighting their own darkness. Tom Hardy's truth, though heartbreaking, is ultimately about redemption. He's proof that you can fall to the bottom and still rise. That pain doesn't define you. How you face it does. Today, he uses his platform not for fame, but for awareness. He supports mental health organizations, speaks openly about recovery, and encourages others to embrace vulnerability instead of hiding from it. Strength, he said, isn't pretending you're okay. It's admitting when you're not. It's a message that resonates deeply in a world that idolizes perfection while quietly breaking under pressure. In the end, Hardy's confession, I'm risking it all to tell you the truth, wasn't about scandal, but salvation. It was a reminder that even those who seem indestructible are fighting silent wars. Behind his stoic face and commanding presence is a man who has spent his entire life trying to reconcile fame with fragility, chaos with calm, sin with salvation. The tragedy of Tom Hardy isn't that he fell. It's that he had to fight so hard just to stand. But his triumph is that he did stand, again and again. And as he continues his journey, he remains a symbol of something rare in Hollywood: authenticity. When he said, "It's time," he wasn't talking about ending his career. He was talking about ending the silence, about letting the world see that the strongest men are often the ones who've cried the hardest, and that healing begins the moment you stop pretending. Tom Hardy's truth broke hearts because it reminded us that no matter how dark life gets, redemption is always possible if you're brave enough to face yourself. Thanks for watching.